we'll have this discussion.
Discussion? What discussion?
This is a discussion combustion.
Coming to you from Denver, Colorado. This is Discussion Combustion Podcast with your hosts, Kevin Batstone and Arthur Raw.
Julia, thanks for joining us here. We literally just met you, 7 minutes ago, and we're jumping into a podcast here. So excited to get to know you and what you do a little bit better. Thanks for being here.
No problem. Glad to be here.
And you are an author, a book writer, and also a business owner. So tell us a little bit about, which came first? Was it the business or the book that came first?
Oh, it's the husband. I got married. Let me be very honest with my journey. So it all starts with him. Okay. We got married many years ago, but I married an entrepreneur, adventurer at heart. I was much more of the girl who stayed in the box, did all the things, right? Like followed her to-do list, right? I don't even know that I would have been an entrepreneur, but I happened to marry one. So he came first, followed by this idea that maybe we should do real estate. And so it was that idea of like, he had the golden handcuffs at the time. This was way back in, 2007. So he asked me to marry him. He quit his job and we started a career as real estate investors in 2008. So that's where it all started. So we got in the market when everyone was getting out of the market, right? We all remember 2008. So that's really where that's where most of my journey started, was cutting my teeth, like real life, figuring things out, having no idea what we were doing, too young or stupid or naive enough to know that the worst time to be in real estate, right, was when we got into it. But to your guys' point of like mental toughness, we didn't know what we didn't know. And so we happened to decide to pick a niche to find the need. And we rocked short sales, which happened to be the best time to be in real estate. Nice. And so that's really where kind of our mental journey and mental toughness started, was that.
Yeah. I mean, you guys got in at the right time, right? They say buy low, sell high, right? The market was at an all-time low. I mean, that's got to be kind of a dicey situation to jump into when, everyone's bailing. But hey, you can only go up, right? Buy low, sell high.
And in theory, right, I think that all of those ideas are always like where it sounds good. That's a mindset that sounds good until you're in it, right? And you're literally watching people running out of the industry, and people who've been, years and decades making money in real estate, and now they're just folding. And, so I think hindsight, when we were in it again, I was 21 years old. We really were, too naive, too stupid, no difference. But I think that there was something that taught us early on that generally is that if everybody else is running away, maybe it's something that we should be actually leaning into here. Or like there's some opportunity here, like where people are afraid, maybe that's where there's opportunity. And when there's too many people are like, "Ooh, buy now," maybe you're like, maybe I shouldn't. And so it was just, I think, an early lesson of like how the mindset game actually works in life and in business. So that's where it started.
Yeah, I mean, as much as humans are societal creatures, like we perform, like we're ants. We're kind of like ants, right? Like they need this whole colony together to be stronger together. But as far as a personal journey and actually discovering oneself, when you go against the grain a little bit and don't follow all the social norms, then you really start like tapping into your individualism. And within that is this freedom and kind of excitement too, because you're not asking for permission. You don't care anymore. And you're like getting this extra reward because you're doing something that's more difficult than what the normal people are doing out there. So it sounds like that's what was happening. You went on this journey, you came across some like hills to overcome, and this whole experience, did that lead to writing the book? Or like, I mean, tell us some more.
Here? What's chapter 2?
Yeah.
So if we're like giving you like snapshots, so chapter 1 is we get into real estate, and actually you guys, we did really well, really fast. I mean, we were making money so fast. We were managing 50 to 70 short sales. I mean, these were kids, we were buying the cars and the loft, and like we were making more money than most people make in a year, in a month. Nice. To the point though, that we were spending more than we were making. And though we were building a business and systems and people, and we had really created for ourselves something incredible, there was so many different mindset things that we were not focused on. I think there's that ego and the discipline. There were so many other factors. So we hit an all-time high of just from an income, revenue, success metric, only to 3 years later being $100,000 in debt, living in my mom's basement. So that was super not sexy.
That's a reality check, right?
That's humbling.
Yeah.
That was like, we had like some really cool high highs. And then all of a sudden it was followed by like, whoa, there's more to this game than just skill and technique. And, you know, like what just happened there and how do we not do that again? And that's how I kind of stumbled my way into doing business coaching at the time. Was an opportunity arose to where I was like, well, maybe I can at least tell people about my lessons, my failures, my successes, what worked, what didn't. And I could really potentially, put this together in a package. So we started some of the fastest growing mastermind groups in Denver, Colorado. And these were really around the techniques around business ownership, right? Strategic planning, process mapping, revenue, values, culture, like all the things that you need in business. And it was awesome. I found my voice there, to your point. I found a little bit of that edge to go, oh, what do I believe? And what are the principles of business? And then after about 4 years of doing that, leading hundreds of people through this process, I started to realize that there was the gap. And this will bring us now to where I am today. This gap was so fascinating to me because I watched adults, we're talking about adult human beings, coming into these classes. We would give them the tools to be successful. Here's how you process map a business. Here's how you do revenue share. Here's how you hire appropriately. And they would come back and not do it week after week after week. And then there would be talking about all the things that we wanted, but all the things that were stopping them. And this gap became clearer and clearer and clearer around what we want, but what we have, right?
Okay.
That gap is what I do now. The gap is why I wrote the book, because I'm fascinated by this idea that we as people at the click of a button could Google how to do anything, how to make more money, how to lose weight, how to have better sex, how to travel the country in an RV, how to start a business. We could Google how to do these things. And yet, statistically speaking, we are struggling with depression, anxiety, divorce, suicide, like at all-time high, which tells us information. It's not just about information, right? We're talking about tools to actually see transformation, right? That proves that growth is not about skill set, it's about mindset. That's where the book started for me, because I was like, what is this gap? Because I've been in the gap. I've seen too many people in the gap. And I want to understand what is that? Because if we can bridge that, we can solve world hunger.
And what is the name of this book?
Dream, I Dare You.
Dream, I Dare
Dream, I Dare You?
No, Dream, I Dare You.
Oh, sorry.
I like it.
Yeah. Dream, I Dare You.
I like it.
I do like that a lot. Everyone should check that out. Obviously. So we want people to read the book, but like, what are a couple of those reasons why, or I would rather say, what are success stories? What did people experience to actually achieve overcoming the gap that you discuss in that?
Yeah. So there are a lot that I'll just play my own story for a second. Right. So, I think that I wrote this book, but let me say it this way. I'm standing here today, not trying to be egotistical, but proof of the pudding. All the dreams that I had 10 years ago are manifested in my life, mentally, emotionally, financially, spiritually, like all the things that I wanted. I am now living that out. Like I am living the dream, but that's not why I wrote the book. I didn't write the book because streaming is awesome or wonderful or everybody should do it. I wrote it because it's really freaking hard. And there wasn't a book out there that actually was giving me the tools to understand how to do the hard the right way, how to pick my right hard. There was nothing that was exploring these limiting beliefs and the things that were actually keeping me from bridging the gap, these patterns in my life that I was having, right? To your point of, we have so many learned behaviors that we think that we're controllers, or we think that we're avoiders or you learned to do all of these things. And unless we unlearn what we think we know that just isn't so, there's no way we can bridge that gap. And so I am where I am today is because of this process of understanding limiting beliefs, finding my place of burn, knowing what my vision is, knowing what my drive is, my give a damn, how to get there. Like, that's really what this book is. So I wanted to put it in a process that actually would help someone do the hard well. That's what this book is about. It's a deep read. This is not after a beer. This is not before you go to bed. Like this is legit.
You got to be dialed in. I like these kind of books. I really do. I've been getting into a lot of just self-understanding and finding your mission, drive, and purpose is something we talk about a lot on this show. And, I recently finished a book by Coach Corey Wayne called Mastering Yourself. It's a fantastic read, kind of taps into some of those similar things. Right. And I like how you word it as the gap, because I can picture it. I'm a visual guy. I like to see it. Here's where we are. Here's what we want. How many years and how much development went into kind of channeling this vision into the book and finding, because you said you were at a low in the basement, we got to re-strategize. What did that time frame look like, and how did it all then translate to words on paper?
That's so good. So after doing it was probably an 8-year journey from like really starting to go, okay, I'm playing a different game here, to the full manifestation of the book. We'll call it 8 years. And I think that for me, when it actually started putting pen to paper was after I transitioned out of business coaching and really started focusing on growth coaching. So what changed for me is I actually started working with very successful people. These are people that are coming to me, they're doing $5 to $100 million a year, very successful on paper and totally not fulfilled, right? Or they can't get their leaders to follow in the way that they need to follow, or they got to a certain level, but they can't get to the next level. Right. And so that could apply to anybody. What got me to where I am isn't necessarily going to take me to where I've never been. Right. So I'm working with a lot of those people. And so that's where we started actually using the tools that just saved my own life, got me free, to your point. Right. I was like, all right, I'll just teach you what I learned, turn from there to go, I can only teach so many people. This is where I really actually want to put pen to paper, actually write a book that could meet someone where they're at in their process of freedom. Really, they buy the book because the idea of, oh, maybe I could dream, but really what they're buying is freedom. They're buying their opportunity to get out of the box, to stop doing things that they've always done, to quit the patterns and the narratives and the habits and the daddy issues, and actually learn to live free by healing and by really understanding what motivates them. That's when we started putting pen to paper and actually created that process for people.
So I do excellent information there. I mean, it's great, but I love the title because it's a dream. Is it dream, comma, I dare you? Is that how it reads?
Little dashes dream.
Yeah. So it's like dream, I dare you. And it's a challenge, right? But that's what it is. It is a challenge. And it's almost continuous, because once you have the dreamer mentality and you're really doing your best to manifest your best life that you see in your head, you have to dare yourself every single day. And I talk about this frequently. Mm-hmm. It's a daily commitment. And I was just going to go into the whole thing of you do it until you die. It's a new mentality. It's not like an after beer, like you said, or right before sleep, or I'm going to do this for 2 weeks and see how this fad goes.
It's full send.
Yeah, it's full send until death. And you have to dare yourself every single day to keep challenging yourself to fulfill these, who you can be. So there's a lot that I'm kind of psychological. I like getting my own head like that and thinking the deeper layers and all of that.
We call those the raw rants on this program.
Yeah, a couple little raw rants here and there. They make the merry-go-round.
Totally. No, and I love that, because I think that was the whole idea of okay, I knew that the idea was dreaming, right? And I give a totally definition of what dreaming actually is, because I think there's already kind of a bias or a negative connotation around that. But the dare is that, right? Dreaming is not for the faint of heart. It's those of heart. And what that does is it actually helps you get to a deeper level, to be led from a deeper level. And I think that as you start to unpack this book, or this idea, is that the goal is not the goal. The dream is not the dream. It's about who you become along the way, right? Because what the journey along the way is building within you is the resiliency to hold the blessing. And any parent knows this, right? It's that minute that you actually give birth to a baby and you're holding a baby and you go, the responsibility of this dream is mind-boggling, right? Or it's one thing to make $1 million, it's another to keep $1 million. It's one thing to get successful, it's another to stay successful. And so often what we're overlooking is, sure, yes, the dream's important and the vision, the goal, but that's actually not really the main point of this. The main point of this is have a true north, know where you're going. But then the point of this is for you to become the best version of you. So when you get there, you stay there, that you can hold the weight of the blessing of that, right? One of many destinations. And I think that's why that I dare you is because we don't realize that this is hard, right? But pick your heart, because It's all hard, right? Being fit is hard. Being fat is hard. Having money, no money. Being single, being married. Like at some level,
Yeah.
it's all hard.
We're all suffering together on this planet. Let's stick it in.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it's true.
So for me, I'm like, pick your hard, pick the right hard based upon what you want most, not just what you want now.
Yeah,
it's true.
And that could be different for everybody too. I mean, I think you're bringing some good perspective to that fact that, hey, you deal with people that are very successful financially. They have all the cars, the houses, all this stuff, but it doesn't mean that they've unlocked their full potential and they're not happy with themselves. And that's something we drive home a lot. What's next, right? I mean, we always talk about kind of the staircase a bit, the infinite staircase. Sky's not the limit. You can go beyond the sky. That's a quote from Phil Marzo. I like that one. And, it's something I think about often because, I have my goals. I'm like, here's where I want my business to be. But when I get there, am I still going to be, struggling with other things? Am I not allowing myself to maximize my own potential, outside of just those, buying a house, having the cars, career goals, what have you? I think we can get caught up in that a little bit, and it's good to have goals, right? It's good to move the goalpost a little bit, but I like this idea because it's focusing more on, the big picture rather than just, career success. I'm looking forward to this read.
Well, and I think Tony Robbins says one of my favorite quotes is that success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And I think that, right, success can be measured, right? Like get the cars, buy the house, put X amount in the bank. Like success is measured. Fulfillment has to really be felt. It's known. It's a deeper feeling, right? And I think that when we understand both, that's really important. But then when we also even back away from that to realize that this isn't just about what's next and what's more, because wherever we go, there we are, like we learned this in our midlife awakening after success, failure, success, right? My husband and I kept crawling into bed each night, asking ourselves a simple yet profound question, which is there something more? Right. And this was after we rebuilt our careers and we did have the house and the cars and the 2.5 kids. And we had the American dream, but we were like, is this it? So we did what most people don't. Like we didn't get the car or another like tattoo. We just sold everything. We decided we're going to travel the country in an RV. And what was so interesting and fascinating about that is, yes, we were in new territories and new environments and meeting new people and trying new food, but wherever we went, there we were, like there were my beliefs, there were my narratives, there were all. And so at some level, you just have to turn an about face and like the only way out is through. It's the only way out. And so when you really can lean in there and start to study your patterns and your belief systems and the things that got you to where you are, you really start to realize this isn't going to take me to where I've never been. And that doesn't even mean these were bad beliefs. It's just like, it's gotten me as far as it can take me.
Well, and to echo your point there, it's which is so true as well, because, you had a certain mentality to overcome whatever it is that you had to overcome. Like, for me, it was opiates. Like I had to have a certain mentality and to overcome that and like acceptance and stuff. But through that, like, after you cross that bridge, you are dealing with like a new scenario. So you can't maintain the same mentality consistently all the time as you continue to succeed, because my circumstances have now changed. So then what I was doing to succeed in the past won't necessarily continue to work moving forward. And to echo another point, what you're saying is we have to be aware of what we're actually thinking about. And it can be a strenuous task and exhausting thinking about your thoughts. Why am I thinking that thought? What am I repeating to myself? Am I actually paying attention to that? Do I ignore that thought when it happens? How could I redirect that thought into something more positive? It could take a lot of effort to do that. But I think that's one of the most important things that we could all do, is really pay attention to our thought processes, how we speak about ourselves to ourselves. And are we encouraging ourselves? And are we feeling satisfied with our day, right? And it's being aware of that thought, because your mind is working regardless, whether you're paying attention to it or not. It's still doing all the things that you could potentially be inputting and helping it grow in a different way. So there's a lot of layers to what I'm saying there, but I mean, same with this conversation that you're talking about. And it is really interesting to just kind of peel back the layers on this.
Well, and even if we're just giving another visual, right, there's a difference. And I start to unpack this in the book a little bit, because I found myself being one of those that at some level, I think all of us hit a point that no matter what kind of mantra or chant or positive thought, we hit something that goes, I don't buy it. I'm obviously I don't buy it. No matter how much I'm trying to fake it or force it, I'm just not buying it. Well, the idea of the difference between a thought and a belief is that, right, every time I have a thought, it's like it creates a new path on the brain, right? The more that I think the thought, the wider it gets, the easier it is to think the thought, right? So if I have any thoughts around, right, people are going to reject me, or it'll never be good enough, or there will just never be enough, I'm going to think that thought enough times that it starts to create a highway on my brain. And then what the brain does is go, we need a shortcut. There's too many other things to think about here. Just create a shortcut, make that an automatic belief. Just believe it to be true so you can get keep doing life. And that's how most of us live, is on these automated thought processes that then when we can't get to that next level of success, right? When we don't have more passion in our marriage, when we can't bust through that financial ceiling, when we're stuck clarifying or manifesting any dream or goal, generally what we do is we just try to change the behavior. We Google, find a better how-to, we find a different coach, we get a 1, 2, 3 step guide. But the problem is we have behavior modification, but we don't have belief modification. So now I'm layering all this strategy on top of a belief that's locked and loaded already. So now all I'm going to do is either be burnt out, successful and not fulfilled, or I'm going to prove the original narrative true that says, see, I told you I'll never be successful. See, I told you you're going to reject me. We become these self-fulfilling prophecies. It's fascinating.
It really is. We're diving in deep layers here for sure. And, when we look at, social media, which is something that we kind of beat up a bit. And to your point, being able to Google anything, having all of this information at our fingertips is both a blessing and a curse. And I think that's kind of what we're getting into here a little bit, because you're right. It's what's the instant fix? Oh, let me just put a Band-Aid on it, red pill mentality, or, whatever that saying is, rather than really peeling back the layers. I like how you said, the thought gets wider, right? But we got to change the way we believe. And, that leads me to a question that we ask a lot of folks on this program about affirmations. And I'm curious to see where you stand on those, both positive and negative affirmations, and the effect that they could have.
Totally. I mean, I think that 50% of the time we can move our thoughts real eloquently, meaning that if we have a negative thought, 50% of the time we're going to go, I'm not going to buy into that. That won't serve me. And we can push that thing out of the way. Equally so, there's some affirmations of I am love and there's enough in this world and abundance. And some of those we'll buy into 50% of the time. It's the ones that we can't, right? Those were the ones that were fascinating to me, because I knew in my own life, and now I've seen thousands of people, that it doesn't matter if someone believes that there is not enough, or that they will be rejected for who they are. It doesn't matter how many chants, mantras, Bible verses, beautiful songs you send them. It's they're don't hear you. I can't hear you. Why? Because the problem with this is now I also have too much confirmation bias, too much experience that says, no, because look at that and that and that and that and this and that. Because I'm putting on my goggles that says, see, whatever I find, right? Just again, we Google, I need a new couch. Then what do we find in our Amazon cart and on Facebook and in the emails and our friends texting us did you need a couch? You're this is weird. This is so messed up. I just talked about a couch and now the world is aligning to help me buy a couch. Same goes for our beliefs, right? So if That's true. Really believe that I'm going to be rejected for who I am, then I will find the guy in the grocery store that's mad at me for standing in front of him. And I will find the one relationship that proves, and we just continue the cycle. So I think that the affirmations, both good or bad, are valuable. But where I'm more intrigued is what am I stacking it on top of, right? At some level, I could say all of these things trying to reinforce the positive behavior, but if I'm not willing to uproot the seed of not enoughness, at some level, I'm just going to burn myself out because I'm just trying to fake my way to a better affirmation.
Yeah. And that could be the tough part too, is having a level of acceptance and neutrality in order to actually admit where you are failing in life, right? Because it's never easy to swallow that pill, where, wow, I've been really irresponsible with my finances for a while and it's catching up to me and it's hurting my credit and I'm having a hard time paying these bills, or whatever it is. I haven't really, been giving my relationship all the effort that it needs in order to help fulfill my significant other's, love languages. And, they want to leave me now, like whatever it is, like, it can all build up, and it's hard to really take accountability. And that's one thing that I've noticed in society is I feel like, generally speaking, and of course we talk to epic people like yourself all the time, so there's so many wonderful people out there that do hold themselves accountable and responsible, but I feel like a lot of people just try to let shit roll downhill, and oh, that's not on me, or I did good enough there, that was enough effort, like I'm not going to see it all the way through, I'm not going to do the right thing even if it's the hard thing to do. And I feel like that's part of the gap, is just this lack of drive to actually like expose yourself and be vulnerable to yourself, because you have to, it's like an internal battle, it's not with anybody else, right? So
taking accountability, some sort of accountability. Like you said, Art, people are like, oh, that's not my deal, that's because of my childhood, or that's because of this and that or the other thing. It's like, well, we got to take a look in the mirror here at some point, right? We got to reflect within. And one of the questions I have for you, Julia, is obviously doing what you do and building the success, and this great formula that you have. When you bump into people or people come to you for advice, do you feel compelled to help them, or like how do you approach those scenarios, right? Because usually people want to, people they look up to or they admire or have respect for, they want their opinion. And having the info that you have now, is it just such a craving that you just want everyone to understand this information, or are you kind of like, look, you take it or leave it, it's out there, it's up to you?
Yeah, I think that's a really fair question. I think that what's interesting to me, I think it probably goes without saying, but it's like, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't get them to drink, right? We can want something.
The cliches are true.
Like they really are, like you can want for someone else than they want for themselves, and all these things. But I think the pivotal moment for me that's changed the way that I do my marriage, my life, my content that you put out there, is at some level you do it for you because you can't not do it. That changes everything, right? Like, let me give you a couple examples. Forever in my marriage, my unconscious commitment was to make sure that my husband's happy, right? And that's what we do a lot of times. We just want to make sure that they're happy, and we people please and we accommodate. And I'm a challenger. I'm a driver. So that's not normal behavior for me. But with my marriage, I found myself really wanting to just make sure my husband was happy. This ultimately was the journey that got us sober together. But that also meant that, like, okay, if you needed to drink every night or 5 nights a week or whatever, great. Whatever makes you happy, whatever makes you happy, whatever makes you happy. And it wasn't until I finally went, that's not the kind of wife I want to be. What do I mean? I'm like, no, I actually want to be the wife that actually gets to watch her husband become the best version that he could ever be. And that means in hard moments when he wants another drink and we say no, and we do a quote unquote push up together in the hard moments, or he wants to tap out, I go, I love you and I cannot let you tap out here. Like it changed everything on how I did life with my husband, because now my commitment was not so that he could just be happy. My commitment was so he could be the best version of him. Right. Now, if you look at that from a business perspective, if we're content developers or whatever, if I'm doing that for them, I'm going to be in trouble, because now I'm only doing it for the lovers. And what about the haters? And they might love it, or those guys might hate it. And now I'm actually on this like ups and downs and swings of the market and the people and the thumbnails and the YouTube subscribers. And you're like, and then you'll lose yourself. You're going to lose your voice. And part of finding that burn, I call it your conviction, is I don't know what I would do with myself if I don't stay true to myself, my song, right? So I am not doing it for the lovers, and I'm not doing it for the haters. I'm doing it because I can't not do it.
Yeah.
That changes the game.
Yeah.
You think about your workout routines, you think about what you're eating, you think about your money, you think about all of a sudden you're like, we do too much as people based upon someone out there. And it's like, it's just a bottomless pit. So I think that for me, when people, right, that at some level, we're now giving more exposure to anyone at any place in their journey, because there's people who are super deep in their journey and they love this deep talk. But the majority of time, guys, People run for me at the playground. They're like, Julia Gentry's coming. Run! Like, she asks hard questions and
She's gonna
doesn't
say something too deep and meaningful. I cannot take it. I want to stay surface level. I don't want to get to my core today.
They like legit
It's like
run
stuff like that, right?
from me. It's hashtag run from Julia Gentry. Here she comes.
Wow. It's just too much for some people. Like, whoa. I don't want to be exposed here. I can't handle this.
Yeah.
You know, like you said earlier, ignore the noise.
Yeah.
It's so true though. The power, the empowerment that one can experience by fulfilling what because we only know as an individual what truly makes us happy, right? Like, and that's for everyone to figure out on their own. And you have to find that in life, or else you're going to keep utilizing artificial means to try to feel happiness. You're filling a void, right? And so we all need and I've like coined it the long, cold, hard road. And even if you have a husband, wife, or partner, or whatever, we all still need to walk our own long, cold, hard road, because like we're talking, it's not, you're going to be consistent for failure. You're going to be consistent for success. Neither is easy. It's all going to be hard. So it's like, you have to like walk that road. But one thing that I've discovered recently, and just hearing positive feedback from people, is there begins to be like this weight on the shoulders, a little bit of like, you know, I have to, you know, if you're motivating people, you kind of want to keep motivating people, but then within itself, that can become a distraction, right? Because now you're thinking about doing this for somebody else. Like, I have to keep motivating people. And so I've been having this conversation with myself recently where it's like, I need to keep doing what I'm doing exactly as I'm doing it for myself, to echo your point of like, you really got to do something for yourself. And that's the only way I'm going to keep motivating people, is by staying on the path that makes me personally happy. And that has nothing to do with anybody, right? So it's interesting, because there's like this kind of these two parallels in life, to where like when you're out there getting it and chasing it, you don't even need to say anything about that, because everyone can see it and people can feel that. But then you also need to stay true to yourself throughout that process, and also stay adaptable, because your circumstances changes, and how to reach the new level of success is going to change your mentality. So there's all these different layers to existence. And then like, I don't have little ones. Kevin and I don't. So, I mean, and you have little ones, and all my friends with kids, like there's all these different things that they have to, all these other layers, right? And how do you help them have mental health? And so it's all pretty deep.
Mental health, I think some of this, right, and I don't want to get too far down this bunny trail, because I understand like that is a big topic. But I think that I think that if our aim to be happy in this life, if that's our aim, we're really going to come up short, right? Because let's even take this from a physical fitness. If you and I want to get in shape or stay in shape, and we're actually in the gym doing it the way that we need to be doing, lifting till failure, getting a few more reps in those moments, I'm not happy. Like, I don't generally want to like
Correct.
fist bump you or like, yeah, this is awesome. Like, I'm not really having fun. Fun is I want to do this again. You know, like that's how I define fun. So I think that sometimes happy can be the slippery slope, because I don't always feel happy when I'm working out and lifting till failure, right? And so I think that if we can change that narrative just a little bit to go, look, the goal of this life isn't to just be happy. The goal is to continue. If we even think about Maslow's hierarchy, right? He coined this idea that it's to actualize, like it's actually to lean into our potential. That is a growth need that we get to actualize as who we are. That's a really pretty way of saying we can be the best version of us. And last time I checked, that refining process sucks.
It does.
Like, and if I'm looking for happy, I'm gonna tap out, right? But if I'm like, ooh, like this is refining me, like this is an opportunity for me to like lean in and check my triggers and why I'm exploding on people, and not like accommodating to, well, that's just the way that I am. But I'm like, whoa, like this is actually giving me an opportunity to really lean in and to learn about me and to become the best version of me. Now the joy, I'll use the difference between happy and joy. Now the joy, like I actually have joy that's sustainable, because good days, bad days, ups, downs, wins, failures doesn't mean anything about me. It just means I'm en route.
Mm-hmm.
right?
It's-
My
I
identity
mean,
is
that's
not
also
tied
true.
to all those things.
Yeah.
It's true. And I know you had something to say, but and I'm gonna pass it off quick.
You're good,
I've
brother.
been on this weight loss journey and have seen some success, and that is the joy, right? And it's been months and months and months. But when I'm fasting, 14 to 16 hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week, I'm a little miserable within that fast. So I'm not enjoying the whole thing, but the joy that I'm getting from going through the process is worth it. So I feel like that's like just a quick example, and there's so many different areas where that people could relate to that.
You got to feel the feels, right? I mean, and I like these, a lot of folks go, the ultimate goal is being happy. I just want to be happy. But what does that look like? Because it was a great example. Working out when you're, having to do your third set of 8 reps of bench pressing, you're like, this sucks. I'm not having a good time right now. I don't want to do this. And I think that's a good way to break it down a little bit, but the ultimate goal, right, is enlightenment, and what gives your life a sense of fulfillment and joy. I like that approach a little bit more. That resonates a little bit better, because it kind of communicates the same message, but when you break it down, it's okay. Not everything is gonna be peaches and cream and overly painted pictures and sugar coated scenarios, right? Life gets tough at times, and we got to be our best selves through those tough times. It's easier said than done, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But if we kind of rearrange the verbiage a little bit there, I think the picture makes sense to me.
Totally. And I think that is the goal, right? Enlightenment actually means that I'm actually able to kind of go through each moment, but I have a higher perspective in the midst of all of it. And that is a practice for all of us, right? And I mean, I've worked and I've walked through journeys of losing people that, right, died too young. And we're talking about sobriety journeys. And we're talking about real issues too. And yet when you actually start to realize that there's greater meaning and purpose, right? That enlightened state, it does make it simpler, not always easier, but simpler. Right. And then I think that the techniques that you start using, and I talk about these in my book all the time, is like, even in those questions is, okay, if my goal, let's even use you as an example, what would be your success metric of losing weight? We'll just do this real quick. Okay. How would we know that on paper we're like, check, I was successful?
So it would probably be, and I'll speak specifically. I like to say things in a vague way, but I'll stop that right now.
Okay, good.
So I would say 190 to 200 pounds, okay, is like goal. At my heaviest, I was like 255.
Good.
And I've gotten down to about like in between 210 to 215.
You look good.
And I just want to, feel good, less knee pain, which has subsided, and feel agile, like, and able to breathe going up the stairs. Like, I'm not winded. So that's kind of where my goals have been at.
Okay, great. So let's just walk this through. So generally what we'd say to people is 190 to 200 isn't clear enough. What do you want to be?
Okay. I feel like 195. I want to be 195, right in the middle.
Cut the gap.
Yeah.
In the middle.
Cut the gap.
Yeah.
Here's what
that was the gap.
What we do is
Okay.
we kind of go, well, it would kind of be nice. No, I want your can't not. Like, tell me if you go, no, I can't, and don't tell me, because when we go, well, but practically, and if you look at like my family and the body shape, and I didn't ask you any of those things. I asked you, what do you want and can't not have?
No, this is good. This is good. Okay, keep going.
So what is it, 195 still?
Yeah, we're saying 195. Yes.
Okay, great. 195. So this is a success metric. These are also important, because we as people like achievement, and we like to go, boom, check that, like got to that goal. Now you also used a word though that I loved, and a lot of times people won't give me this. So the fact that you said this is, you said, I want to feel agile. Like I want to breathe. Okay. So now what we want to do is we go, there's my goal. That's the success metric. There's my dream. Then we're going to go, okay, now what I want to do is, okay, 195. Now I want to ask myself, this is back to that mindset, not just skill set, is how does that guy who's 195, strong, agile, how does he think about food? What does he think about his day? How does he think about his body? Because the goal is not just to get to 195. The goal is to think like that guy. So when you get to 195, you stay 195, right? Because what most of us do is we can sprint our way to the goal, right? Even us achievers and doers, we can sprint our way to that thing, but then we can't sustain it. Why? Because I changed behavior, but I didn't change mindset. I didn't think like the agile guy. Right.
Well,
so
I'll tell you this much. I already know that I need to put down these and not in
You
the same
do.
way I
You do.
am
I was coming
nowadays.
after that next. I
Yeah.
was
No,
coming after
I
that
know.
next.
I'm gonna derail that. I already know that one. Okay. You can't hit me with that.
He's like, that's not my goal. That's not my goal.
Oh, but it is.
Okay. So then here's the beautiful part about this. Now the part of what we go, ooh, okay, so who is this making me? It's making me be the guy who is agile. So now I'm going to come up and I'm going to go, is that burger going to make me feel agile? No. Okay. I'm going to get on that treadmill and I'm going to do some, right? I'm going to do some sprints and the brain's going to go, I hate this. I don't want to do this. All the things, right? I just want a beer. I don't want to do this. I hate this. And you're going to go, okay, what does the agile guy think? That breathes. He finds value in doing that. All right. Get her done.
The future state of mind, like
It's a
looking
future
at it
state of
as
mind.
if you've already accomplished it. How does that feel? What does that look like? Like you have to like start seeing it as if like that you're already living that and maintaining it. It sounds like is one of the important disciplines here.
It's a mindset and a lifestyle. I mean, that's, yeah.
It's a total life. Because now you're like, no, I'm going to be a man that for the rest of my life, I'm going to be agile and I'm going to breathe. And every question now I'm going to ask myself, is this actually, will I feel agile? Can I breathe after I do this? The answer is no, then there's your answer. Right? This is truly what got my husband and me sober, is not that we were like crazy alcoholics. We weren't, right? We were very
So how
normal.
long has it been? How long has it been since either of y'all have had a 17 months?
Congratulations.
Okay. That's a good amount of time.
We joke because I drank often. He did drink a lot, but I drink often, right? And it was like, oh, it's Friday, it's Monday, I'm a mom, I'm tired, I'm at a party. It was all the things. But ultimately, my end goal was freedom. I will be free.
So mine, for an example, I was saying agile there, and you had freedom in your mind.
Freedom.
Okay.
Freedom. And so I started to have to ask myself, oh, what is that drink going to give me that I can't give myself? Because I was learning to lean on it, right? If I could walk into a room, I could have a drink and kind of curb the insecurity, right? Or I could show up as the coach and say good things, because everybody needs Julia Gentry to say really good things, right? Or at the end of the day, I'm sliding home and I got 5 kids still. And you're like, okay, if I could just have a drink, then I could get the edges, like the rough edges. I could just, like all of a sudden I was starting to go, okay, great. This alcohol could keep giving me all of those things, but what I'm after is freedom. So my question is, will that drink actually set you free? That was a huge can of worms. And it was the thing that not only got us sober, but has kept us sober is no, that's a no. That won't get me free. That won't keep me free. And I got to deal with my insecurities and my workload that's too much and the same habits that got me here that won't help me get where I want to go. And I got to do that. I need to do that. Stop hiding behind alcohol. Do it. So we did.
It's a strong message for sure. And yeah, again, congrats on that for sure. Bringing it back, your ultimate goal was, freedom. And that wasn't giving you freedom. Whereas, I think some folks, including myself, say, hey, I perform better after a couple beers on a podcast, right? And now I've convinced myself of that. A couple cold Bud Lights, it'll be smooth, take the edge off, right? And so, that's a good vision for me to evaluate. And
it was, for me, I had someone heard me saying that 17, 20 months ago. I mean, I'm a hard hitter. I'm a driver. So I had ever told anyone that I hide behind a drink to kind of curb some insecurities, everybody around me would have gone, that's crazy. But I had to face those I wanted to unpack that corner in my life. I wanted to figure out, why do I need that to give me something that I should be able to give myself?
So what was your buildup though? Like, cause you haven't had a drink in 17 months, but how long was the buildup to get to day one? Like, how long did it take for
10 years?
Yes. See, that's what I want to hear. Cause like that's the kind of stuff that people need to know about. 10 years that it took for you to, like, you're thinking about this, you're getting disappointed, and you know that you could handle it in a different way, that you're leaning on the substance. And it took 10 years of going through that to finally make a decision and be like, I've had enough. And so I want to echo that point. My journey was 5 years before I was like, all right, I've had enough. And in February, I'm 24 months off opiates. So I'm super stoked about that. But the point here is that if you're struggling right now and you've been aware of it, Well, good for you, because you might be on year 2 of 5, or you might be on year 7 of 10, or you might be on year 1 of 3. Like who knows what your turnaround is, but you just got to like dial that in.
Yeah.
So I think that's
Yeah.
really, and appreciate you being humble and like letting us know that,
Yeah.
because those you're successful right now, but you weren't always successful. And it's when you are dealing with that, a lot of people just see what you are currently, and they don't know the backstory. They don't know what you had to overcome, right? And that's what they need to overcome. Is
Yeah.
like, that's how we all get successful, is that like that
Totally.
long journey.
Well, and I think at some level, I knew that it just wasn't going to be sustainable. I was still successful. Like I was a functioning, right? Like most people would have never even thought that it was a problem. It all looked fine on paper, but I think for me internally, I knew it wasn't sustainable. And then I actually wasn't able to make that decision until two things, right? One, I started asking myself, what is this giving me that I can't get? Right. Like, and that answer was so revelatory, because it was like, oh, like this is my place to hide. So what am I hiding from? Like, okay, so what am I? And then it's a can of worms, but like that changed the game for us. And all the people that we walk alongside that are choosing sobriety of any kind, like that question is like, damn, like what am I asking the world, money, alcohol, right? Like you fill in the blank, like to give me that I can't give myself, right? So that is number one. And then the number two thing that I would encourage anyone in this conversation is that, statistics prove that an addict of any kind will go back to their addiction, not because they want to, but because I actually didn't replace it with something that fills my soul. Right. So it's that familiar hell pattern we know about. Like, I'm just going to go back. Why? Because at least it's familiar and I know what I'll feel like at 4 o'clock every day. Right. Because I'm not filling it with, okay, and I had to do this before I'm going to give this up. Like, what am I going to just like totally go knee deep in?
It's
right.
the
Like,
void.
what am I? 100%.
Like I've called it the void, because like once you let go of a substance, for example, for me, I'll speak from experience. Once I let go of that major substance that I used to like plan my paycheck around, I would like looking forward to getting it. Like there was a lot of mental effort there, and you remove that, there's this void in your mind, and it's like a black hole. Like it sucks in energy, and if you don't start filling it in, then you're gonna go crazy, and then go back to like what you said, what was familiar. And I'll be honest, like I filled in my void with a lot of great things, but I've definitely drank a little bit more, and so there's also been some unhealthy habits that I've had to check and be aware of, and like be honest with myself of like I didn't, that was something unhealthy that made its way into the void. So it's an ongoing process, right? Like you're never out of the lines. Then I guess you're never out of the forest.
Anything you're addicted to, right? I mean, the mind craves dopamine, and sex addiction was something that I still struggle with to this day. And it does, compulsive buying, some people struggle with. Like there's different things that people are addicted to. And so, not just drugs and alcohol, kind of making it more broad across the board. There's things that people, fill the void. 4 o'clock, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, because it's familiar. I know what that's going to do. I know what's going to offer. And it's not sustainable. Like you said, it's not going to help us reach the end goal. So it's good to unpack these layers.
Yeah. Yep. I think it's huge. I think again, the thing I would land on is just simply look back and go, okay, what is that thing giving me? Is it giving me connection? Is it giving me power? Is it giving me love? Is it allowing me to hide? Like, what is it giving me? Because then my goal now to fill it the right way, because then again, to your guys' point, I could just look for the next thing, right? The next thing is how do I actually get this in a healthy way? Right? Because all of our needs generally, if you look at what any person, including anyone that's struggling with an addiction, needs, is we need love, we need belonging, we need connection, right? Like we need to be vulnerable, we need to heal. So generally we're like just floating up here, but what we need is, okay, then how can I get true connection? What would it look like to be fully seen as a person, right? Like, how can I heal these areas? So I think that generally it's going to be something around there. And so the question is then, okay, great. I have this need that makes me human. We all have these needs. How can I get this met in a healthy way? Because that's what we want to double down on. Like that's where we want to put some attention, as opposed to just the next vice or the next hit or the next thing that's not as bad, but at least, right? Like we want to fill it in a healthy way.
So important. And for all the listeners out there, viewers, listeners, this is the weekly challenge, is to start having these kind of conversations with yourself, be real, and start thinking about that future self. And I do love, because it's interesting to talk to you, because I have a lot of the same similar thoughts, but not the same perspectives on the subject. And it's so interesting how when you can just get a slightly different perspective on something that you already believe in, it still magnifies and grows your thought process on it. So would, the agile Arthur want to do that? Would the sober Kevin want to do that? How are they doing it? Like, so that's the challenge this week, is like dive into these deeper thoughts and really think about it. I think that's a great challenge for everybody out there, and make it a daily challenge until you make it happen. So you've given us so much great advice, and the listeners so much things to think about. So I'm really curious to what you come up with here, because we always want to ask every single guest that comes on our program, what do you think would be the most important piece of advice that you could give humanity so everybody would be better tomorrow? What would that piece of advice be?
Oh man, my husband knows, he always does this on our podcast too. He's like, okay, random question. I'm like, I hate surprises. I don't like them. I hate them. Yeah. I think it's going to be it's simple. It's going to be start and then don't stop. There's a lot to unpack in each one of those things, right? But
so can I change that slightly?
Yeah.
Start and keep going.
Yeah. Same.
Sorry, I just wanted to tweak it a little bit. I like to always say things positively.
It's so fair. I think what resonates for me is start. Number one, you got to start. The hardest day is the day that you want to start. It will be the day that you get sober, the day that you start your book, the day that you get to the gym, the day that you say yes, right, is the hardest day. The second is that day that you want to quit. There's just, because we all know that day is there and it is so real and you want to quit. Don't quit, and have a plan for that day, because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. You will stop writing the book. You will want to pick up that bottle again. You will not want to go to the gym. And so we need a quick, like, who am I going to call? What am I going to do? Like, I need something to trump the idea that I'm going to quit here. Start and then don't stop.
Yeah.
Keep it moving. KIM, as we say, keep it moving.
Well,
and go all the way.
And that it's important though, too, because there is that voice in our head that starts trying to be complacent and making those excuses like, oh, you don't need to do that, or you don't need to keep writing this book. You could just sit here and relax a little bit.
Yeah, we don't need to keep podcasting.
Yeah, you don't need to show up this week.
Yeah, but
we do. So true.
Keep it moving. True. Keep it moving. I like it. That's great. It's great advice. Go all the way. Go all the way. Otherwise, don't even stop.
Don't stop believing. No, it's so awesome. One thing that I've really, because we've talked to a lot of motivational people on this program and went through a lot of this, and one thing that I've noticed about people, I feel like you have inner happiness that's sustained. So congratulations. I mean, that's not easy to maintain that, but you're keeping it light. You're talking about all these serious subjects, but you're kind of like, you have your chuckles in between. And like, you're having fun with it, because that it should be fun. Even if we're doing something that is monumental in our own lives, like we have to take it serious, but we can't take ourselves so seriously. And you have to have fun through the process of failing and all these different layers of living. And you sometimes you got to laugh a little bit about it and have some fun along the way. Right. So I love that you've demonstrated that.
We say that to our kids all the time. We're like, we get to do this, by the way. Like, I find myself at the gym and you're like mad that I have to run some more. And I'm like, I get to do this. I get to. Like, this isn't happening to me. This is happening for me. I get to do this. Like, all right, let's go.
It's funny. It's funny. Art and I were just having this conversation yesterday, and I've heard it in my professional career. His dad used to say it to him. It's something that I've now adopted: is don't look at it as something you have to do. Look at it as something you get to do. Right? There's a big difference there. You get to do it. You get to be involved. You get to go out and do whatever it is that you're getting to do. Enjoy it.
Totally.
So where can everybody find you everywhere?
Yes, you can find me all the places at the Julia Gentry. So on Instagram, on our website, it's at the Julia Gentry. And actually, for your community, if anyone does want to buy the book or they want to start their journey, you can get 10% off if you buy it on our website. Just use the discount code DREAM10, all capital and all spelled out. You can buy the book, the workbook, whole thing, 10% off.
So TEN at the end. Okay, I got it. We'll include that in the show notes, and then we're also going to follow you because we did a pre, like, hype up the listeners' Instagram story, and I was like, we can't even tag her right now, so we're gonna get you dialed in.
We're gonna have to
Oh,
get
you
it dialed.
tag me. You tag me, baby.
Oh, you'll know. You're gonna be hearing from us, Julie. You can't, once you're in the wheelhouse, once you start, don't stop. And I'm gonna tell you this. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Once you're in Denver, whenever it is, next quarter, this quarter, we're gonna get you AIS.
Goal. That goal is
AS
195 in agile. I will be knocking on your door here in the next 60 days, bro.
Yeah.
Now,
keep me account. I need people to keep me accountable.
Julia Gentry is going to be on your ass. Okay. And then we're going to get her AIS here in studio next time you're in Denver, Colorado.
Yes. Right across the table from us. And it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, this was a fun conversation. I love these real talks, breaking down, just fun stuff. And we just met you too. So now it's like we spent an hour together and I already feel like I've known you forever. So can't wait to meet you in person. Again, we'll include everything in the show notes down below. And you mentioned your podcast too. Let's get that out there for people to listen to.
Yep, it's the Dream On podcast. My husband and I co-host it together. So you get a little bit of the male-female interaction, and it's fun. We talk about all the things. We talk about faith, family, our career, parenting, adulting, everything in between.
Good stuff. Keeping it real. I'll have to give that a listen. And hopefully our listeners will tune into that as well. It's been some fun sharing some time with you. Thanks for taking time out of your evening to talk with us. Can't wait to do it again.
Absolutely. Listeners, be good to yourselves.
You deserve it.
Then I'm going to stop I'll stop the recording there. But yeah, great content.
Yeah,
You're obviously comfortable talking and awesome on the camera.